Heartwarming journey. Poor homeless boy exposes incredible truth that transforms billionaire's life. Ethan's eyes sparkled brighter than the Los Angeles sun as he darted through the bustling streets, his cherubic face smudged with dirt, but it was his infectious smile that radiated hope. A mere 10 years old, Ethan found freedom in the chaos around him, dreaming of a home filled with warmth. With every step, he imagined himself embraced by a loving family, though reality often hit him harder than the pavement beneath his worn sneakers. He scavenged scraps from food trucks, lost in a world of dreams, unaware that the city swirled with stories of riches and despair. On a particularly busy afternoon, Ethan spotted a food truck and raced towards it, visions of tacos dancing in his head. As he approached, the aroma wrapped around him like a warm blanket. In that moment, it didn't matter that his stomach grumbled, for that delicious scent carried hope. Just as he reached for a half-eaten burrito thrown away by a man in a suit, fate intervened in the form of John, a billionaire trapped in a gilded cage of loneliness and cynicism. John, with his perfectly tailored suit, scanned the streets from his parked luxury car, far removed from the world around him. When his gaze fell upon Ethan, he felt an unfamiliar tug at his heart. A twisted smile flickered across his lips, only to fade as he viewed the dirty-faced boy as merely a problem needing resolution. With a few crisp bills in hand, John approached Ethan. "Here," he said, shoving money towards him, thinking he was offering a lifeline. But that look in Ethan's eyes full of unyielding hope sent a shiver through John. Ethan looked up, confused yet curious. "I don't need money," he replied quietly, his voice steady. "I need a friend." That simple statement flipped John's world upside down. Humility and connection crept into John's heart, lingering like a warm hand on a cold shoulder. They began to walk together, a billionaire and a boy battling different kinds of loneliness, both learning lessons they never expected to face. Ethan showed John the hidden corners of LA, where makeshift homes flanked alleys, adorned with laughter that mingled with tears. He introduced him to corner store owners who shared tales of generosity amid struggle, each story resonating within John's soul, opening doors to forgotten dreams. The joy in Ethan's unbroken spirit challenged John to see beyond his polished, lonely empire. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, they arrived at a charity event John hosted, intending to showcase his newfound commitment to philanthropy. But the scene spiraled as corporate greed threatened the very communities Ethan had shown him. The whispers of corruption hung heavy in the air, creating an invisible barrier of tension between the billionaires and the community members. As he wrestled with his choices, every ounce of John's being clashed with the urgency of the moment. Would he choose profit, or would he step up to stand by Ethan and protect their newfound family of friends? Ethan watched, wide-eyed, feeling the weight of John's decision. The once whispered dreams of a safe home felt tangible, yet a storm approached. Would they break free from their worlds to embrace a future built on compassion? The clock ticked as emotions tightened, and the looming question hung between them: could a bridge be built between the cold reality of wealth and the warm embrace of community? As their stories collided, the next chapter beckoned, keeping the promise of transformation alive. Ethan felt the energy in the air shift as he stood beside John, the tension palpable. It was as if the world around them held its breath, waiting for the billionaire to make the choice that would define their evening. Ethan's heart raced, matching the rapid beating of the city that pulsed around them. Just moments before, he had been immersed in a world where laughter and resilience reigned. Now he stood at a crossroad that could change everything. John glanced around the lavish venue, filled with the richest of the rich, their laughter ringing hollow against the backdrop of Ethan's vivid memories. He searched for the friendliness he had found in the streets, the warmth of community, but instead saw faces cloaked in self-interest. While the buzz of cocktails and faux smiles swirled, Ethan felt heavy with uncertainty. "Ethan," John whispered, his voice barely rising above the clinking of glass and chatter. What do I do? There's so much at stake. His thoughts swirled, burdened by the weight of expectations and the realization that in this circle, kindness felt like a weakness. Ethan stepped closer, his small frame almost hidden in the shadow of John's towering presence. You have to choose what feels right in your heart, he urged, his eyes earnest. Money can buy anything except the love of those who really matter. There was a wisdom in the boy's words that would have surprised anyone who assumed his life offered only hardship. Taking a deep breath, John cast a final glance at the bustling crowd before focusing on the boy standing beside him. The innocence in Ethan's voice echoed louder than any fancy conversation around them. It hit him like a wave. He didn't want to go back to the life where he felt nothing but emptiness, he wanted to make a difference. This isn't just an event for me, he said, his voice steadying. It's a chance to do something real. Ethan watched in awe as John made the decision right there, turning his back on the glitz that surrounded them. Let us make it about them. About the community. Together, they stepped away from the party, heading towards a quieter garden area, away from the noise. As they found a bench surrounded by blooms, John let out a sigh, a mix of relief and determination. I want to help in a way that matters, he declared, sparks of hope igniting in his chest. Let us get community leaders together. We can create something lasting. Ethan's face lit up. We can bring everyone together. They understand the importance of working as a community. Hope began to shimmer in the boy's eyes, transforming his dreams of a home into aspirations for a brighter future for his entire community. As they shared ideas, laughter spilled between them, igniting a fire of change that threatened to engulf the shadows of doubt. The two of them were like stars against the backdrop of the velvety night, a boy with nothing and a man with everything, now united by a common purpose. However, just as their plans began to solidify, a loud crash echoed from behind them. The celebratory ambience shot through with shards of chaos as a group of protesters burst through the entrance, chanting for justice and equality. Their voices pierced through John's moment of clarity, and strangely, he felt a surge of connection to their plight, a sense of purpose rising within him. Ethan felt John's hand tighten around his as they turned to face the uprising. What now? The boy wondered, the spirit of their new mission whispering promises of hope and understanding. Caught between their newfound goals and the raw energy of the protest, they stood on the edge of a new beginning, both knowing they couldn't back down now. Would they join the movement, or would they retreat into the safety of their past? The question burned brightly in the air, as the winds of change began to swirl around them, forging a path they had yet to explore. Ethan's heart pounded as he witnessed the chaos unfold. The protesters surged into the garden, their voices rising in passionate unison, a wall of determination that tugged at him, wrapping around his spirit like a warm cloak. He could see the fire in their eyes, felt the urgency in their cries. It called to something deep within him, something he thought had been long buried beneath the weight of survival. John's grip on Ethan's hand tightened as they exchanged a charged glance. We can't just stand here. We have to do something. His voice wavered, a mixture of fear and resolve. This was the moment they had both been waiting for, yet it felt daunting. The elegant facade of the party felt like a distant memory now, replaced by a burning desire to take action. With a shared nod, they stepped forward, blending into the crowd as the protesters advanced. Lars, a rugged man with a thick beard holding a megaphone, gestured passionately. They bury their heads in gold while we fight for our lives. Fight for fair wages. Fight for our community. The words struck John like arrows, piercing through his previous distractions and grounding him in this new reality. Ethan watched as the adults surged forward, driven by a fierce determination. He felt an urge to join them, not just to follow, but to be heard. We need to add our voices. He shouted over the noise, his small frame almost lost amidst the crowd. The words felt raw and real, ignited by the energy around him. John breathed in deeply, letting the din of the protest fuel his resolve. You're right, Ethan. We are part of this community, and it's time to show it. He raised his voice, catching Lars's attention. We need infrastructure, resources, education, real change. Let us not just shout, let us organize. The surrounding protesters began to turn towards him, curiosity sparking in their eyes. Lars nodded thoughtfully, encouraged by John's unexpected confidence. "We need all the voices we can get, especially voices that can make a difference," he said, gesturing enthusiastically. "What do you have in mind?" Ethan saw his chance to contribute, stepping closer. "We could combine efforts. What if we set up community meetings to create plans and connect with local businesses? Your voices can finally reach decision-makers." His excitement bubbled over, and to his surprise, more people began to cheer, seeing hope in the faces of John and Ethan. John's heart raced as he realized the gravity of what they were about to do. Together, they could bridge the gap between the wealthy and the disadvantaged. It felt like the first step in an important journey, one where they would stand side by side, holding hands with those who needed it the most. But just as the crowd began to rally behind them, the atmosphere shifted. A series of sirens blared in the distance, causing murmurs of apprehension to ripple through the crowd. Fear and anticipation mingled, and John felt the reality of the danger they were stepping into. What if they try to shut us down? Ethan's voice wavered slightly, eyes wide with uncertainty. John looked at him, his expression softening. Then we stand our ground. We won't allow fear to silence us. We're finally doing something that matters. With determination radiating between them, they stepped forward. And as the gathering dark clouds of the unknown loomed overhead, the flame of purpose in their hearts burned ever brighter. But just then, an official-looking figure emerged from the shadows, his expression hard as stone, raising a hand to call for silence. The crowd gasped, the air thick with tension. "Who dares to challenge the order?" the man boomed. The question echoed ominously, leaving John and Ethan standing on the precipice of an unfolding storm, their fate hanging in the balance. Would they still be able to speak their truth, even as fear threatened to silence them? Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the official's voice rang out, leaving a heavy silence that wrapped around the gathering like a fog. Bodies shifted uneasily, faces turned apprehensively, and he could feel their collective anxiety weighing down on him. He glanced at John, their hands still intertwined, both of them grappling with the enormity of what lay ahead. "Stay calm," John whispered, his voice barely audible over the rising fear in the crowd. "We didn't come this far to back down now." His grip tightened, the warmth from his hand sending a jolt of courage through Ethan's veins. The official stepped closer, eyes scanning the crowd, his jaw set. "You think your voices matter?" he sneered, arrogance dripping from every word. "This is not how you create change. Stand down now, or face consequences." Ethan felt the threat hang in the air like an axe just waiting to fall. He noticed the older protesters shift nervously, some exchanging worried glances, others clenching their fists in defiance. But as the tension thickened, something inside him ignited a fierce determination that urged him not to cower in fear. "Everyone deserves to be heard," Ethan shouted, the volume of his voice surprising even him. "You can't silence us. Change starts here, with us." His heart raced as he watched the man's expression flicker. Doubt crossed his face for only a heartbeat. The crowd began to murmur again, a wave of voices swelling with Ethan's words. "Fight for what's right," Lars yelled, rallying behind Ethan's courage. The momentum grew. People were no longer just waiting, they were ready to act. Suddenly, the official raised his hand sharply, eyes narrowing. "Last warning. You'll regret this choice," he barked, but his authority wavered, the confidence seeping from his posture as he faced the unified front of protesters. John took a deep breath and stepped forward, leaving Ethan momentarily shielded. "This is our community. Our lives. If we don't stand up for ourselves, who will?" His voice rang out clear and strong, igniting a resolve that rippled through the crowd. Ethan felt every word John spoke, pulsing in the air between them. Hope wrapped around him, fortifying his courage. He couldn't just remain a voice in the background any longer. "Together, we can create change. A place where every voice counts." He called out, feeling the truth of it resonate in his soul. Facing the official now, John and Ethan stood side by side, hearts racing in sync. The distance between the two sides began to shrink, with murmurs of agreement rising from all around them. The man in front of them stood unmoving for a heartbeat, his eyes darting between John, Ethan, and the growing crowd, a wave of unity on the brink of crashing against his stern facade. What happened next surprised everyone. The official took a step back, masking his uncertainty with bluster. "You think you can amend the status quo? This isn't a game, you're playing with fire. Then let us start that fire." Ethan responded, his voice stronger than he anticipated. The crowd shook with energy, people yelling in support, fists raised high. They were no longer just faces in a crowd, they were comrades, warriors fighting for a cause that felt righteous and true. Time seemed to stand still as the force of their collective voices ignited the spark of hope. Yet in the corner of Ethan's eye, he saw the man reaching towards his ear, suspiciously dialing something on his radio. The dark cloud of uncertainty returned, heavy and foreboding. "What will they do now?" Ethan whispered to John, worry etching lines on his youthful face. "Whatever it is, we have to stay united. It's our only chance." John's gaze was steady. But as the sirens wailed louder, and shadows began to gather in the distance, Ethan knew they were approaching a decisive moment. Would they find the strength to stand against the storm that threatened to tear them apart, or would fear cut their budding rebellion short? The clock was ticking, and the time to act was now. The sirens blared closer now, an ominous wail that cut through the electric energy of the crowd. People tensed, looking around for a sign of what was to come. Ethan's heart raced, pounding against his ribs. He could feel the sweat beaconing on his brow, but he refused to let fear swallow him whole. Beside him, John was unwavering, his eyes sparkled with determination amidst the chaos. The way John stood, his chin lifted high, ignited a fire in Ethan's chest. They were not just onlookers to this moment, they were actively shaping it. "We've got this," Ethan murmured, more to himself than John. Ethan scanned the faces around him, feeling a surge of courage from the unyielding expressions. They were scared but unbroken. The older protesters, initially hesitant, now seemed to draw strength from the younger voices. Ethan thought of how many lives depended on them. "Look at us!" he called out, raising his arm in solidarity. "This is who we are. Change is not easy, but it's worth it." The voices began to swell again, echoing his fervor, "Together! Together!" The official's face twisted with disdain, but for a brief moment, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Ethan saw it and pressed on. "Injustice thrives on silence. We won't stand for it anymore." But the man's calm facade shattered. "You have no idea what you're stirring. You'll regret this foolishness." His voice dripped venom, but the protesters stood steadfast, grounding themselves in their shared purpose. And just like that, the tension reached its boiling point. The police vehicles marched forward, lights flashing in a stunning display. Officers stepped out, their expressions serious, stance ready, but there was a subtle hint of hesitance among them, as if they too sensed the movement of solidarity rising like tidewater. "Do not engage," one officer barked. "Back down." But even as he shouted, the voices rose higher, drowning him out. They were like a chorus of thunder, each person melding into one solid wave of defiance. Ethan looked at John, whose eyes reflected the fire of the crowd. "This is it," John whispered. "We've come too far to turn back. We have to show them we're not backing down." Before Ethan could even catch his breath, John stepped toward the front, leading the charge with balls of conviction and defiance. "We will be heard," he shouted. Ethan felt the energy shift, powered by an unspoken pact. They were fighting not just against the official, but for their neighbors, for their community, for every person who had ever felt voiceless. They stood together, a mixture of dread and hope swirling in the air. Suddenly, there was a crackling from the radio of the official. "We need backup," he announced, a chill spreading across Ethan's spine as the words echoed ominously. The crowd paused briefly, confusion flickering through the faces surrounding him. "Back up." The idea sent ripples of anxiety through the air, filling the moment with uncertainty. Would they be met with violence? Weren't they just trying to raise their voices? Stay together, everyone. Ethan called out, clenching his fists. Don't let fear divide us. In that instant, he found solace in the ties that bound them, a shared struggle, a quest for dignity. A calming energy flowed through the crowd, as they rallied towards the unseen battle ahead. Would they stand strong and face whatever came next, or would the arrival of more forces dash everything they fought for? As the crescendo of voices echoed off the nearby buildings, Ethan's heart raced, embracing the charge of uncertainty that came with the power of the unknown. But one thing was certain, they had begun a wave of change, and they were ready to ride it to the shore. What storm would they unleash, and at what cost? Ethan's voice cut through the thickening tension, amplifying with fervor. Together. He shouted again, his heart pounding in rhythm with the crowd. Each repetition echoed like a heartbeat, building a collective pulse that thrummed through the air. Waves of sound grew louder, a melody of defiance. John, ever the beacon of resolve, glanced back at Ethan, a subtle nod radiating encouragement. We can't let them intimidate us, he said, a calmness in his voice amidst the unfolding storm. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the pavement, deepening the feelings swirling around them. There, in that critical moment, what started as uncertainty flickered into clarity. They weren't just fighting against an invisible wall, they were fighting for every dream, every right that had ever been snatched away or overlooked. Then the first smoke canister rolled into the crowd, releasing a cloud of hazy gray. It choked the fresh air, echoing their fears. Gasps erupted as people staggered back, panic flaring in their eyes. Ethan felt the swell of anxiety rise, but amidst the chaos, he also sensed something else, a fierce resolve. It was a call to arms. Hold your ground. Ethan shouted, pushing against the rush of people wanting to flee. Don't let them scare us. This is our moment. John grabbed Ethan's arm, steadying him. They want us dispersed, but we are stronger together. His voice surged like a beacon. Some in the crowd hesitated, fear writ large on their faces, but Ethan saw a few brave souls step forward. The winds of change were blowing hard, and they could feel it knotting their insides, together churning with uncertainty but also hope. More voices joined in, rising above the chaos. We won't back down. We won't be silenced. The police moved with renewed ferocity, but Ethan sensed that their force was dwindling. They faced an unpredictable tide of human spirit that swelled unstoppable. The contempt on the official's face deepened. Stand down. He barked, desperation trickling into his command. In the thick of the chaos, someone passed forward, a child, no more than 7, clutching a crumpled sign that read, "Listen to us." The sight pierced through Ethan's heart. Here was innocence, draped in bravery, standing firm against the waves of adversity. Look! Ethan called, pointing to the child. We fight for them. For the future. The crowd surged again, infused with a renewed sense of purpose. Children of their community were precious, full of dreams, and they were not going to let a system built on indifference shatter those future hopes. Suddenly, the air buzzed with tension as a new police van arrived. Officers poured out, clad in heavy gear, shields and helmets glinting in the dying sunlight. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Would this be the moment where hope turned into defeat? Everyone stay together. Ethan bellowed, rushing back to the front. He couldn't let fear dictate the moment. Amidst the chaos, they had tapped into something more than just resistance. They had invoked unity, a stirring of humanity that could not be broken easily, but something deep in Ethan's gut stirred as he watched the line of officers advance. What if their bravery was met with violence? What if the innocent child on their shoulders became a pawn in this disheartening game? What was the price of their courage, and how far would they have to go to resolve the injustices? Ethan's heart raced, uncertainty gripping him. Would they emerge on the other side stronger, or would this be the moment that marred their fight forever? As the officers moved closer, the tension reached a fever pitch. Would love triumph over fear in the crescendo that was about to unfold? Ethan's breath caught in his throat as the officers moved in unison, a wall of shields reflecting the fading sun. It felt like a scene carved from nightmares, but here it was the reality of the moment. He could see the child's small face, still determined, framed by the panic swirling around them. That innocent gaze anchored him, igniting a deeper purpose within. Without thinking, Ethan stepped forward, weaving through bodies, clutching onto that surge of courage. "We're not the enemy," he shouted, his voice ringing out with urgency. "Your weapons can't hurt our hearts." The words hung in the air as if seeking to bridge the chasm between them and the line of enforcers. A ripple of uncertainty flickered through the crowd, and for an instant, eyes met. Strangers' eyes connected, and Ethan felt the shared warmth, like a fire igniting in the depths of despair. Beside him, John's grip tightened. "Ethan, wait." But Ethan was past the point of no return. He could feel their energy, feel the desperate hope mixing with the fear. "We need to show them we're human," he continued. The first officer advanced, his gaze hard and unyielding. Ethan's heart pounded like a drum, yet he held his ground, every beat a declaration. The people behind him watched, breaths held, hearts racing, the tension strained, pulling taut like a wire ready to snap. Another voice joined Ethan's, a woman who stepped forward beside him, tears shining in her eyes. "We have families. We're here for our children." The crowd stirred, and the wave of courage surged. "For our dreams," echoed an older man's voice, thick with emotion. Others began to step forward, finding strength in the faces around them. Fear began to mutate into something else, a collective resilience. Ethan glanced at the child still held up by an elder, that tiny sign still held high, "Listen to us." Someone in the back started to chant, "What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now." The officers recoiled for a heartbeat. Their line wavered, confusion crossing their faces. A palpable connection sparked between the crowd's energy and the officers that couldn't be dismissed. "Why all hear that?" one officer muttered, glancing back at his fellow soldiers. He seemed to hesitate, the authority he wore starting to crack. Ethan seized the moment. "We want to talk," he called out, fearfully hopeful. "We have grievances, we want to share our stories." Behind him, someone shouted, "We deserve to be heard." The crowd erupted in a chorus of voices, rallying around the idea of communication, of dialogue, but amid the solidarity, a command pierced through, sharper than any blade. "Push forward. Clear them out." The order surged from a higher officer. The moment shifted again, and the tension transformed, a clenching of fists, withdrawal of breath. Panic swirled anew, and chaos loomed like a storm ready to break. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. "No. Wait." He interposed himself between the advancing officers and the child still lifted, voice steady despite the fear. "We have every right to stand here. You can't silence us." The officer closest to Ethan hesitated, caught in the storm of emotions framing the children's innocent plea against his orders. Their eyes locked for a brief moment, and in that instant, Ethan saw a flicker of something: conflict. Humanity, but then, without warning, the officer barked back, "Fall back." And the crackle of a radio sent a ripple of response through the line. Before he could register the implications, the air was sliced by the force of shields propelling toward them. Would Ethan's profound resolve be enough in the face of advancing forces? Would their voices be drowned out once more in a tide of power and fear? As the crowd braced for the clash, Ethan understood, love and fear were on a collision course, one that would define not just their fate, but the future they all yearned to reclaim. What would it take for them to bridge the gap? The shields crashed forward, slamming into the first line of protesters. The sound echoed like thunder, shaking the very ground beneath Ethan's feet. Instinctively, he stepped back, but something deep inside him pushed him forward. He wouldn't let fear control him. Not again. Together. He shouted, the words shooting out of him, laced with urgency and defiance. We've got to stand together. Pushing the panic down, the crowd surged with him, hearts thumping loudly as a single body. They held their ground, refusing to be scattered like leaves in the wind. A mother beside Ethan clenched her child's hand tighter, her face a mix of determination and raw fear. They were all connected in that moment, standing firm against the tide of authority. "Show them we are not afraid," someone cried from the back. The chant grew like wildfire, rising over the chaos. "We are not afraid. We are not afraid." With every repetition, the boldness grew. Ethan felt his heart beat in sync with the crowd, a rhythm of resolve echoing in their chests. The officer at the front faltered, his grip on the shield tightening, but Ethan saw at the crack in his armor. The man was human, too, caught in the whirlwind of duty versus conscience. "Listen!" Ethan called out, his voice rising over the chant. "We're not here to fight. We're here to heal, to be heard. Talk to us." For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Ethan could see the officer wrestle with his commanding orders, the struggle written all over his face. It was the kind of moment that could change everything, the kind that could turn the tide if only someone chose to extend a hand instead of a fist. Then, someone in the back shouted, "Remember the children." Instantly, the atmosphere shifted. People stepped forward, faces reflecting a deep yearning for connection. Someone held up the child high, that little sign flapping with the wind, "Listen to us." The crowd echoed in chorus again, "Listen to us." It wasn't just a chant, it was a plea that reverberated through the air, a heartbeat that the officer couldn't ignore. Faces turned toward him, pleading, open, earnest. Ethan saw the officer's expression soften, if only for a moment. His shield lowered just a fraction, as if he were contemplating the impossible, stepping across the line. Yet, with his every moment of hesitation, the weight of his orders bore down harder. He glanced back towards his ranks, uncertainty painted across his brow. Just then, the sound of cracking radios blared from behind him, cutting through the fragile hope in the air. "Tear gas in place. Prepare for disperse." The harsh command sent a wave of dread rippling through the crowd. "Stay together." Ethan yelled, the command rooted in desperation. He glanced around, seeing faces of fear and apprehension. But then he noticed something remarkable. The young child's eyes, fierce and unyielding, bore a strength that echoed through the throng. That face became a beacon. Then, it happened. The line of officers moved to implement the order, shields pushing forward as the first canisters of tear gas rolled into the crowd. Panic erupted. "Get down!" someone screamed, and chaos erupted like a bursting dam. Ethan's heart raced. He had to act, to shift the energy back to that moment of hope. What if they could still find a bridge? "John!" he shouted, grabbing his friend's arm. "We can't let fear win. We have to show them our humanity." But as the gas began to fill the air, a sudden realization struck him. They couldn't fight fear with fear. They had to embody what they stood for. As the haze thickened, Ethan drew a deep breath. "Everyone!" he shouted, trying to break through the swirling panic. "Hold hands. Show them unity. Let them see who we really are." In that instant, something amazing began to happen. People reached for one another, linking arms, drawing strength through shared connection. Could this act of solidarity be the bridge they so desperately needed? As tears began to stream down faces, a sense of calm started to weave through the tempest. But then, would the officers see it? Would they initiate a connection? Or would the moment slip away into chaos once again? The air crackled with tension, lingered like the gas, heavy yet electric. Ethan's mind raced. What was next? Would love overcome fear, or would they become another statistic in a story of strife? Ethan squeezed the hands of those around him, the warmth of unity spreading through the crowd like a wave. Eyes wide with determination and fear, the faces of mothers, fathers, and children held a fragility and strength that tethered them to each other. As the tear gas began to burn the air, the choking smoke felt like a fresh wave of anxiety crashing down. Yet there they stood, a tapestry crafted from hope and resilience. "Hold on!" Ethan shouted, his voice strained but resonating with resolve. They had faced so much together: loss, challenges, and now this. It felt surreal, yet essential. He could sense the trembling intensity around him, the desperate hope that this fight was about more than just protest. It was a fight for recognition, for humanity, for the right to speak. The first tendrils of gas curled through the throng, the acrid tang biting at the back of his throat. "Use your shirts. Cover your mouths." A few people scrambled to mask themselves as others began to falter, coughing and stumbling. The distraction was tearing at their moment of connection, but Ethan's heart remained resolute. "Cammy!" he called out, spotting a familiar face in the crowd. She had been in the front row, her spirit unbreakable. Now, she was grappling against the panic spread across people, her eyes shimmering with determination. "Help me!" Together, they moved among the crowd, urging everyone to stay together, to keep their hold. "If we fall apart, they won." Cammy shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos, eyes fierce. In that moment, Ethan saw her for the warrior she was, someone willing to face the storm, to stand for what was right. With a sweep of her hand, she prompted others to move. Slowly, like a rolling stone gathering moss, the unity began to kindle once again. The officers loomed ahead, a brick wall against their audacious stand, yet Ethan felt the electric charge of possibility. What if they could shift the story? Then came a gruff voice from the line of officers: "Disperse. You will be held accountable." The warning reverberated in the air, but in facing a wall of uncertainty, one thing flickered like a glimmering light: the connection among them, powerful and compelling. "Remember the children." Someone cried again, and like an echo, it rippled among the crowd. "Remember why we're here." The chant rose up, bolstered by the collective breath of defiance and compassion. They were there for hope. They were there to bridge the divide. "Ethan!" John yelled, tugging at him, eyes wide. "They're about to push. What do we do?" "Show them." Ethan responded, fueled by desperation. "Show them that we are family. Show them that violence is not our answer." And in a collective shift, hands became raised in an act of openness. The gas continued to swirl, but something unshakable was rising among them: a fierce love. A belonging. The officer on the front lines hesitated, brow furrowed. The crowd's chant surged with renewed vigor, transformed into a plea: "We are one. We are one." Ethan's heart raced. Could this be their chance? Could compassion penetrate the hardened wall? Suddenly, a voice broke through the din, clear and bold. "We're not here to hurt you." A young woman stepped forward, arms open wide, face radiant with vulnerability. "We want to heal together. We need each other." A moment hung in the air, suspended between fear and potential. The officer's grip on the shield lessened, that crack was widening. Could this simple act of courage crush the barriers? Was this what humanity looked like in action? Desperation clung to Ethan, but hope danced at the edges. As the crowd surged ahead, the air thickened with uncertainty and beauty. Would this act of love bring them closer or tear them apart? Ethan held his breath, his palms clammy. Just as the outcome felt inevitable, he caught the swift motion of a riot shield. Would the tide finally turn, or were they destined for another night of conflict? Ethan's heart raced as he felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Standing there, surrounded by rolling clouds of tear gas and the unwavering spirit of the crowd, he discovered an inner strength he didn't know he had. He clutched John's hand, feeling its pulse like a lifeline. Together, they had the power to shift the air, a chance to turn the tide not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. "Let us keep the energy flowing," Ethan urged, his voice strong, cutting through the haze. "We're not here to fight. We're here to be heard." As the chant of "We are one" echoed back, it felt like the very world was holding its breath. The officer's stance wavering, a crack in his rigid facade was evident to everyone present. There was magic in that moment, it was palpable. John, standing proud beside Ethan, raised his voice, "This isn't just about us anymore. It's about our families. It's about our future." People around them began uplifting their voices, joining in the unifying chorus that tugged at hearts. Each declaration wrapped around the officers like a warm blanket, stirring something deep within. The gas stirred unease, yes, but hope crackled too, twinkling in every eye that met the other's. Then it happened. The officer in the front line hesitated. The grip on his shield relaxed. Confusion flickered in his eyes. Was he no longer an enforcer? Was he just a man seeking to protect? In this pivotal moment, the collective humanity of the crowd shone like a beacon. The clarity of hope streamed ahead. Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. "You're not our enemy," he called out, his voice rising like the sun breaking through the clouds. "We want to stand with you, not against you. Look around, it's love bringing us together." He gestured to the little girl still held aloft, sign in hand, her innocence piercing through the tension like a ray of light, and suddenly, across that tense, charged landscape, the officer stepped closer. Something unfurled among them, a possibility. Every soul held their breath, unity spiraling into a tangible force filled with shared dreams, aspirations, and deep-rooted needs. "Put down your shields," someone shouted, emboldened by Ethan's words. Then, like a domino effect, others began to echo, "Put down your shields." Ethan's heart soared. Maybe they could bridge the gap between fear and love. Maybe they could turn this fearsome battle into a harmonious melody. He turned to John, whose eyes glistened with a mix of excitement and disbelief. "Do you think they will?" he whispered. "Hope is stronger than we think," John replied, the hum of belief radiating from him. With a shared nod, they pushed forward, feeling the weight of their words spill into the air. The officer paused once more, his eyes darting around, lingering on the hopeful faces of parents, children, even fellow officers who seemed frozen, caught in their own moment of realization. "Enough!" the officer finally yelled, breaking through the tension as his colleagues looked on with bated breath. But within the chaos, he took a shaky breath. "I'll listen." And in that moment, disbelief turned to joy. The crowd responded, unified. Cheers erupted, voices harmonizing into a chorus of shared hope and recognition. Together, they stepped closer, officers and protesters, seeking the humanity that connected them all. "It's like a family reunion," Ethan thought, a warm smile breaking on his dirt-smudged face. He stood beside John, their hands still entwined as they bridged the gap between their worlds in the fading sunlight. As they began to talk, real conversations blooming over pain and dreams, Ethan felt the weight of their burdens begin to lift. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a new beginning. A foundation for lasting change nested within the fragile petals of hope. Together, they were going to rebuild block by block, allowing space for dreams to breathe and flourish. Families woven tighter together under the night sky, light piercing through the darkest clouds, illuminating the way forward. Ethan turned to John, their eyes both shining brightly with anticipation. "We did it!" he exclaimed, barely able to contain the thrill. "Yes. This is just the beginning," John replied, a radiant smile spreading across his face. They exchanged a knowing glance, unity and hope igniting within them. They became not just a boy and a billionaire, but a humble reminder of the power found in connection and compassion. As dusk settled into night, surrounding a community beginning to rise anew, Ethan took a deep breath, knowing that love had triumphed over fear. The moment felt right. It felt full of promise. And now, as they returned to the world hand in hand, they were ready to embrace whatever came next. Make sure to dive into this journey with us. Join the transformation and subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to keep the positive vibes flowing and show your support for change. Your thoughts matter. Comment below with your feelings about this inspiring ending and what it means to you. And for those who need to hear this story, share instantly with at least 5 friends. Don't wait not even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of spreading these messages of hope and transformation. Let us light the way to a brighter future together.